Marcia is an Iman woman, anthropologist and geographer who has really been engaged in the full gamut of Aboriginal issues that Australia faces and been really at the coalface of many things for a long time. We have Brian, I apologise, I'm not going to give it a go, mate, is a Yolŋu ceremonial leader. He's a musician in the early Arnhem Land popular band Soft Sands, and his visual art is displayed in the Australian National Maritime Museum. He has long been engaged in culture, language, heritage research and holds a Master of Indigenous Knowledges from Charles Darwin University. His recent publications include writings on the long history of Yolŋu engagements with Asian seafarers. And Renelle is a senior Yolŋu leader of Gullamala clan. She holds a Master of Indigenous Knowledges from Charles Darwin University and is presently a health worker at Muach Health in Birrkili. Hand over to you, Marcia.
Thank you, Michael Sean. So a very warm welcome to Brian Djangirrawuy Garawirrtja, and not with us today, but very much present because of her contribution to this work, Renelle Gandhichawuy Gondara, and of course our very own Professor Aaron Korn, Director of the Indigenous Knowledge Institute, and big thanks to the Mulka Project in Birrkili, who've assisted us to ensure that this project was able to be online today with the very sudden lockdown here in Melbourne, preventing Muri and Renelle from coming to Melbourne to join us. Aaron is going to drive the PowerPoint, but I think it's important to say at this point that Brian, Renelle, Aaron, Brian's family members and Renelle's as well, have worked together for many years to record, document and interpret the extraordinary music traditions of Brian's countries that he's associated with. And we'll learn a lot about that today from Brian, from Muri. I'm particularly honoured to be involved today. So many years ago, when I first joined the University of Melbourne, I won a teaching prize, and I dedicated that teaching prize to the now late brother of Muri, Dr. Goombala. So Dr. Goombala joined us often with his wife Pam here at the University of Melbourne. He taught, but he not only taught our students, he taught us. And he's established an extraordinary and then to become long-lived project looking for the cultural legacy of his people that had been removed to museums. Now, to understand all of these, the cultural implications of these objects, I had to turn to my teachers, Joe and Aaron, and now Brian and Renelle, to get a sense of how the musical traditions, the song series, the performative traditions tell us about these cultures and a great deal about history. So one of the projects I developed from my time in Arnhem Land was actually to do with something that we're going to talk a little bit about here today, and that is the long history of Macassan contact with North Australia. And it's this history that is embedded in so many songs, and which I think you will find very interesting. So at this point, allow me please to hand over to Muri, Brian, and Waku Aaron to speak further about their history together, working on preserving these cultural treasures.
Marcia, if you share mine, it's updated since yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have yours. You'll have to share it.
Maury.
Yo, Gato. Aaron, yo.
Yo.
I heard the last part, it's about now about that part. True pain. That was was very valued during those times and those eras. So they were like they were really valuable during those eras, and as well as trading materials, languages. Now Pongal as a performance, and time during those eras. So we use now in like Daripa as a value, because those times it was really valuable. They're precious, like more than rupiah. So there were a lot of like other my cousins came with experience of maritime, how to collect tripping, how to basically process, and at the same time negotiating kinship languages, and the time for being with different clans. So yeah, and other cousins or other now explorers that came with different values. And they came with some perhaps with I can only recall some came with some like Maria, like gun, or some sort of a powerful materials or something, and so I can only recall on the Macassan exchanges during those eras. Puruto as a kinship was very important. Puruto kinship was very really helpful, and also languages, and we both learned a behavior we learn their behaviors. They learn how we live our life, and how we related how did we treat the land, the sea, the maritime status. So but
Okay, so there are some slides that helps to contextualize some of that for people who aren't familiar with the topic. There are a whole range of historical exchanges that Indigenous peoples across North Australia had into Southeast Asia and beyond that stretch for centuries, at least until the 1750s and way beyond. We actually don't know how far they really go back, but Yolŋu have a very strong memory written into public ceremonial practice about those exchanges and what they mean historically and today. And we decided when we were planning this yesterday that we'd dedicate this presentation to Joe Gumbula, who is, one of the reasons that we're all working together now. In fact, I wouldn't be talking to you at all without Joe Gumbula. So we thought that was important to mark him. So Marcia was involved in an exhibition that illustrates this history and her work in this space. Marcia, it goes back to the late 90s, doesn't it?
Yes. So I met Zhou Xiaoping in Darwin when he was studying at the old Northern Territory University, and he'd been adopted by the late artist from Ramingining in that area, the late John Bullen. And so we worked together for about 12 years to try to bring to life the story of the Macassans coming to North Australia annually. They're very strong, as Muri explained, exchange relationships that developed into a deep cultural exchanges over, we think, centuries. So the trepangers who came looking for to collect the trepang or Beshte, a kind of sea slug, came from what is now Kalimantan and the Celebes. They were mainly Macassans.
Okay, I think you've dropped out there for a bit. And what you're seeing on the front cover of this book that was released as part of the exhibition that Marcia curated, these are dried trepang. They're still sold throughout Southeast Asia and beyond today. They cost a fortune, absolute fortune.
And created many artworks, and we found museum works to illustrate the depth of cultural exchange. And just to remember that at the time, almost nobody believed us that this was the case. In fact, our application to the Australia Arts Council was rejected because they thought we were deluded. Anyway, so the historians themselves say that the trade probably started somewhere about 1750, but we're pretty sure on the basis of our cultural evidence that the trade goes back much, much further. And we want to talk to you now about that. I find it very interesting that so much of these centuries of cultural exchange is still alive today in Yolŋu traditions, as Muri will explain.
So the next slide is the launch of that exhibition in the Capital Museum, Beijing. And you'll notice Marcia is standing there with the yellow flag, Joe Gumbula is with the blue flag, and Paul Pascoe is with the red flag. And the flags will come back later. Did you want to say anything about that slide, Marcia? Move
Well,
on.
Paul is the son of the late Dr. Bullen Bullen, and he and Bullen Bullen's widow were there in Beijing, and that was a wonderful celebration. And I'm so glad that Joe and you were there, because we would have been very lonely there in Beijing without you. And it was because of Joe that we were able to have, I think, a tremendously important ceremony, the likes of which those people in Beijing had never seen before. And also, just to say, at least 500,000 people saw the exhibition in Beijing, when we couldn't have it exhibited in Australia because nobody believed us. But of course, the Chinese knew, and they were delighted to meet the people from whom the tripang had come.
So that's the historical trade route. You can see it stretches all the way from the port of Makassar, which was a major hub on South Sulawesi. People would come down on the trade winds to the Arnhem Land and Kimberley coasts, and then there'd be on trade of the dried tripang all the way up through the Philippines to southern China. And this route went for hundreds and hundreds of years, right up until the first decade of the 20th century.
When it was shut down by Alfred Searcy, the tax agent from customs agent from South Australia, the colony of South Australia, and so the British were determined to close down the trade, take it over. Of course, they were not able to do that because these relationships with Aboriginal people were so strong. But also at the same time, I think you have evidence, Aaron, that the explosion of the volcano Krakatoa had an enormous impact on the trade. And indeed, many historians have noticed that the trade was declining at around the time that Matthew Flinders in 1803 ran into a huge Macassan fleet in off the coast of Arnhem Land, led by the captain, or Bungawa Pabasu.
Yeah, 60 vessels and about 1,000 men.
All armed, yes, that's right. But they soon had to become licensed and were harangued by the British to leave. And over time, the trade did cease, but the visitors from our north had developed such strong relationships, they've never been forgotten.
So this is just a, etching from the period of what those boats looked like on the water, traditional prow. And the, item of interest was, this is one of many, many different kinds of tripang, Beshte, sea slug, or Mori, what's its Yolŋu name? Tarikba.
And of course, it's highly toxic, and so the Macassans and their colleagues knew how to treat it. By cooking, smoking, drying to remove the toxicity, and Aboriginal people worked with them throughout the process.
Yep, and dried, they're, like I said before, they cost an absolute fortune, even today.
And gato, and the other, this one's which is a bit wide. The black one is nyon. We call it nyon.
Ah, has a different name. So different species.
Yes, black one nyon. Nyon.
So to locate where we are, the pink shaded area is, the Yolŋu homelands. They're people who speak 7 or so distinct languages that are all closely related. Brian is sitting at Birrkili on the northeastern point at the moment. And where did you grow up, Brian? You grew up at Garawirrtja, right? On the island up the top? Yeah, and that.
Right there.
And that's part of the Arnhem Land Trust. And all throughout the islands and coasts of this area are areas where Macassans traded and landed historically. And there's a lot of archaeological evidence of that we don't have time to go into today. But some of that archaeological evidence for, Asian visitation to these shores goes back to the 1100s AD, CE rather. So that's a long time.
Yes.
I think that rather than tackling this slide word for word, maybe, I don't know if people can read it clearly or not, but what are we doing here, Brian, in this photo?
On this image, it represents the first meeting arrivals, Macassans. We're presenting, like, if you can see all the paintings there, that's my painting. That's my tribal people coming towards and meeting the arrivals, the Macassans there.
Mm.
Yeah.
And all these designs that you're wearing, that they come in the slides later on. We'll see the place where they come from.
It's no Loanwords now painting.
Yeah.
And one of the things that Brian said earlier, in case people missed it, was he said that the trepang was very valuable in money terms, in rupiah terms, but it was so much more valuable than that. And it had a value beyond money, very precious culturally.
Yeah. And so this trade is recorded into the ceremonial law of some Yolŋu clans, and it's performed entirely publicly, which is how we know about it. But the legacy of this trade into Asia, it cuts across the whole of contemporary Yolŋu society. There are hundreds and hundreds of loanwords of Macassan and Bugis origin for all kinds of things. And these are things Brian has mentioned up until now. The Yolŋu word for money is rupiah. It's not here, but the Yolŋu word for rice is bidata, which is a Bahasa word.
Rupiah or bulai. Bulai is like a jewel. Like a jewel, you know? You know it? Bulai.
Or brachi, yeah?
Yeah.
Bulai, it's a markup. It's a really precious. It really deeply means I'd say now, like ancient token from the bottom of the heart. From your perspective.
Yeah. There are words for Ngarali, tobacco,
Ngarali is
in common use.
Ngarali is a common use as a cigarette or tobacco, but it's got a lot of value made expensive value. It all contains with markup, like all the values, material, smoke, food, tools.
The word, sorry, go on.
Yeah. And when I was growing up, I heard my father and also my father's father had always told that you never take these materials or tools or steal from anyone ever. Otherwise you get punishment. They're meant to be really valued, like markup everything.
So these particular sort of trade items.
Yeah, trade items.
Yeah. Mm. And, you know, people who know about Indonesia will notice that the word for flute, juling, is very close to suling, which is an end-blown Indonesian flute. And nganatji is the Yolŋu word for arak, which is a kind of, well, it's a spirit. It's an alcoholic spirit that's common throughout Southeast Asia and all the way west. So we mentioned the flags before. Maury, do you want to just introduce people to the ideas of the importance of flags for Yolŋu clans, please?
The black one belongs to Dolce Manono, Warramari clan, and the red flag belongs to Gurumuro. Gurumuro or Jeke Gurumuro, red flag there for Dalongo clan. Even though they Dalongo saltwater or freshwater, they belong to the same category, as well as Warramari. There's saltwater and freshwater Warramari. The coastal Warramari and Dalongo and forest people, Warramari and Dalongo. And the yellow flag categorized snowy, Gamburinga Jiki. So we should all have the ending part, Jiki, Gurumuro Jiki, Gamburinga Jiki, and the green one, sorry, the yellow one belongs to Gumach. They both freshwater and saltwater Gumach. And also the Djangirrawuy Garawirrtja is one Guri clan. The flag color is green, Mindar, and there's two same thing, the freshwater and the saltwater people. Mindar is a saltwater part where the boat are ported on the shore of Mindar. Mutamul, that's the place called Mutamul. And Yarinya, the white flag, belongs to Yarinya, which is Monyoko, and is other Warramari clan from the other Warramari comes from north side, and the other Warramari comes from, which is the southern part, north and south. Yarinya white flag is Monyoko. They come from a southern way. Just giving you a picture of directions.
And then we come to your flag, the Birrkili Gupapuyŋu flag, which is blue.
Blue flag, that's Birrkili Gupapuyŋu. And it's also for Djangirrawuy.
And you'll notice after Marapaga Mangalili, which is Baniala, which is a white over blue flag.
White over blue.
Oh, sorry, blue over white, wrong way around. But at the bottom, you'll notice that there's a
white over blue.
Oh, white over blue.
Because
Sorry about that.
White is the Wangapini, the cloud formation, and the
Ah,
blue part is the sea, the Moro.
ma.
Mm.
And the last flag you'll notice is actually
Okay, that's the black and white. They're a bit on the north, far north from where Dolce Manonu is. The horizon that way. That my Yappa name after
yes.
Modric area.
But this flag is for a group of historical visitors. It's not a Yolŋu clan. It's a group. It's a foreign group that's been incorporated in the system. And you have here a whole port system that was historically managed on land owned by Yolŋu clans in a confederation of interrelated and intermarrying, or rather interrelated clan groups.
And we have the same benefit in Manukau category. We have the same benefits, song lines. We categorize all in the same. Birrkili Manukau items on subjects.
So we have a song queued up next.
Well,
Or Marcia, do you want to say something? Yeah.
Yes, Darren, please.
Yeah.
Michael, so just for practical purposes, for the audience's sake, I think I should point out that the flags are the emblems of quite a number of things, but as Muri has explained it, clan relationships with the different fleets of prow, or you know, the seacraft of the Macassaries and others. And the flags are also flown on the prow and at the beachheads at these ports, or wanga. And the flags, or garliku, belong not just to the Yolŋu group, but also to the fleet of prow. So Macassans were, or other seafaring folk coming to our shores were only allowed to come to these places under these rules. They had to fly the flag of the port where they were welcome and where they had been, you know, given permission, if you like. I'll leave that to Muri to explain. But flying from the mast of the ship, and you know, that indicated to everybody that they had permission to land at the port where the flag was flown, belonging to a particular clan. And so, you know, this is a language of flags and symbolism across northeast Arnhem Land, and indeed wider than that as well, all the way down to Good Island and all the way over to Western Australia. So having gone through the flag colours, I noticed Muri was just about to explain that there are song lines and of course other symbols associated with each flag and port. And so these, you know, other symbols, you know, might include, for instance, the anchor or the sword, depending on the people involved, the mala or group involved. And so it was definitely a system across a vast seascape, coastal region. So I'll just leave it there, but just to explain that this is indeed a system.
I was going to include also each clan or tribe or the colors have also have a gurutto, like a kinship. Say, for instance, the Dolce, the black flag, if I see black flag, and I say, this is my putara, my grandsons and my granddaughters. Now color, I treat them in a kinship way. Red flag is I call them as a yappa. Yappa or red and blue are we both like we I should put it sisters. Red and blue sisters. Yappa Magi. Because we are married, red and blue are married for black flag and for white flag and for green flag. We are married polo. We are great parents of that's how we also relate that colors and the flags. Indicates that,
Sure. So, Maury, the next slide is an embedded song for Richun Dara. This is a song that you directed and sung lead for back in 2005. I recorded it. And if you want to know where we record in places like this, back when we both looked a lot younger. What does it, how would you interpret that for people before we hear it, please?
You mean Richun?
Your
Richun Dara means standing attention in Balada terms there, standing attention, or Dara, standing formation, and looking to the horizon.
And it's the blue flag standing upright as well, Muka?
Yo.
Okay. Shall we hear that?
Ma.
Yo. Man. Wow.
Is that all? you know.
Is that all? We're running over time, actually, so why don't I skip ahead to...
Well, I was just going to explain the songs. What it meant, you know. The song was, when you heard the song singing, the song is saying that I am standing on a shore with my firm foot and holding this ancient ground, and I'm looking across the horizon where the skies are white and black, and where the sea is coming with waves or just sitting on the edge of the sea, and also it says, I am Birrkili, and I am Gupapuyŋu, and my foot is my foot is called Djangirrawuy. I'm standing in firms holding this ground for my forefathers' ground, you know. And my arms are saying, hands open, and telling whoever comes in has to come through my arm wing, you know. Come and
I'm going to skip ahead to the bit where we can close out. There's still a little more to go, and we had many performances with Macassan artists who came to Australia through things like the Gama Festival, but we'll need to skip that for another time. Basically, all of this is about enabling trade with these seafarers while also retaining autonomy from them. And the specific homeland where Brian is talking about is Loanwords, which is in the top corner of that slide. And wherever there are these flag systems in place, there are designated beaches where the boats are allowed to land, the foreign boats are allowed to land, and there are places where they're not. And, you know, there were Macassans who were allowed to land on the westward facing coast of Loanwords, on the peninsula there, but they couldn't go to the eastern side of the peninsula or the island.
I found this on the web.
And when they did, Maury, what happened to boats when they landed at Loanwords in the wrong place?
Monopole, where that you can clearly see that that white a sandbar. They actually anchored there. You're there. And that was forbidden. You can't throw an anchor, or you can't do fishing around there for such a long time, isn't it? If you throw an anchor, your anchor would caught up by a monopole bapi snake, which in those back in those back in the dream times there, when they try to anchor port there, all of a sudden the boat was the anchor was caught up by monopole bapi, and the whole boat went sunk under, and everybody was eaten, swallowed up by Munukul.
So Mundukul, the water python, rears up out of this sea as a lightning and thunderstorm and devours the boat because they went to this place
So,
and they weren't allowed to.
And on the beach, Munukul spat, vomit, and one of the lady, Mia woman, was dropped into the beach side, the beach, and it's really strange. That we usually have, those cycle palm tree. They don't usually grow in the beach.
The cycad palm,
Cycle palm, but in that Lunguja beach, the cycle plant grew up from the beach. It's a mystery. It turned into a Uratilapumia woman, the cycle palm there. Squirrel there. Usually the cycles, they grow in a dry place, not near the saltwater environment. So it's a really mystery story, You can't find those cycle palm grow in the beach.
They normally grow inland in forests, in groves, don't they?
Where there's good soil, but in that Lunguja, it shoot up from the beach, from the white beach, shoot up, and there's a cycle palm tree there. But you can't get nuts to make it into daily bread because it's ancient Nanawi. It's forbidden. You can't eat from that tree because it's it's the spirit of a woman.
How should we close this Moriga, Nandi?
The Manikai.
You want to, So the next Manukay is Gunbilk, and you'll notice in this photograph that all the water called Munguru is calm and glassy. And that's what this next song is about. And as we were preparing yesterday, it's also a song that mothers sing to their babies to rock them to sleep.
And it closes the curtain.
Did you want to say anything about this recording before we play it, please, Maury?
It's I'm singing on the Manukay, that song. It's basically when the child comes in from all those, when the child goes out, it all does a lot of activities. But when the child goes in there, that's when we start to complete our journey, and that's when we all our babies are cradled and to rest from all those work, cradled so that they sleep calmly like the water. Kunbil Marawal Moro. Now the Moro had completed his journey and all his activities, and now he's coming inshore, and now he's resting. And when the sea starts to get real glassy, and you can see the reflect of the cloud formation in far distance. You can see the reflect from if you see something like from island, other side island, you can see the images from the glass. And it,
reflected in the water.
uh,
And
and after I sing, then my sister will conclude that finalize with by like mourning, crying, and singing the same song what I had what I was singing, and she used that words that in a different form of mourning. But it's a really emotional thing for crying, It goes like this. That's it, Katri.
Yo,
Yeah,
when my
that concludes.
Ah,
Yeah,
I'm not.
I'm not.
Markup. I think Joe would have liked that.
Yeah.
Ma, yo, Kato.
Yo.
Yo.
Okay, that was amazing. Thanks all of you for sharing that and sharing the stories that you have, Brian. You know, where I took out of it a whole lot of things. One of the things that resonated with me or really shook my head was, you know, over the Yolŋu area, there was such diversity, sophistication, complexity. And I wonder, well, not wonder, I would assume that all, if not large parts of the rest of Australia had the same kind of complexity and diversity across the landscapes. And the other thing that really struck me, and if we have more time to unpack it, would be great to understand, was the deep connections you have with Macassans and neighbours, and how modern borders and other restrictions limit some relationships that really need to be nourished and developed and continued.